You are now listening to the J Ade Podcast.
We're getting ready to start in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the J Ade Podcast. It's your boy J Ade in the building. We are back for Season 3, Episode 5 of the show. As you can see today, ladies and gentlemen, we got these masks on our face because the COVID-19 pandemic has ruined all of our plans for the year. We've been 4 months out the game right now, but we back and we better. And without further ado, before we get into today's topic, make sure you follow your boy on social media at Joe the Great. That's JOETHEGR number 8, as well as my podcast page at j.ade.pod. And before we get into today's topic, we have two very special guests on the show today. We have one lady and we have one gentleman. As we always do, we're going to have the lady introduce herself first, then we're going to have the gentleman do so subsequently. So, lady, what's your name? Where are you from?
Hi, my name's Lade. I'm from all over, but
Okay. All over. What's all over? What's all over?
all over for real. But you could just say the DMV in Toronto, Canada.
All right. Shout out to DMV. Shout out Toronto, man. Shout out Drake. And we have a gentleman, man. What's your name? Where you from, big dog?
How y'all doing? My name is Sean. I'm
right.
from New York, and
What part of New York you from, man?
from the Bronx. Feel me?
Okay, I was gonna make a Long Island joke because New York people don't really like when you say they're from the Bronx, from Long Island.
That's like upstate Newburgh.
Yeah,
Maybe from Buffalo.
They say that's like an insult to call people from New York from Long Island. Anyway, without further ado, like I said, once again, this is the J Ade Podcast, Season 3, Episode 5. Man, we got more controversial topics. Pawn your head top. It's been a long hiatus, ladies and gentlemen, but we back and we better, like I said before. But today's topic is a little bit heavy on my heart, and I thought that it was a good way to bring back the show, especially after 4 months. That being said, throughout this country's history, black people have been oppressed in a variety of ways, and even after slavery, there are still systematic ways that our people are still suffering consistently. One of the most prominent ones right now being police brutality. That being said, every black person's mentality on these issues is different. So today's episode will be covering black consciousness. So I brought two very, very conscious black people today to discuss this topic because, you know what I'm saying, from what I see and from what I hear, these are very, very well-versed people in this field of, knowledge.
You're too kind.
You know what I'm saying? I just got to state facts real quick. But without further ado, though, so we had the lady introduce herself first. We're going to have the gentleman state his opinions on this first. The first question for you, my brother, is what do you consider to be black consciousness?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a loaded question too.
Okay.
I think, for the most part, is really understanding yourself.
Okay.
And your blackness. You know
All
what I
right.
mean? I think being comfortable within yourself and your blackness has layers. You know what I mean?
All right.
A lot of folks, think about it and look at people like Minister Farrakhan and be like, oh, you got to be that kind of person. Or you got to be out, in the street, doing whatever. But I think that, what it really comes down to in terms of consciousness is, fully understanding yourself, for who you are within your blackness. You know what I mean? So if that comes by way of, education and reading and things like that, like
Right.
reading books like that, so be it. If that comes by way of, music and things like that, so be it. I think there's a lot of different avenues where you can find consciousness within yourself. So, to me, I've definitely, especially over the past few months, with everything going on, I've definitely been able to, get a better sense as to what
it means
black
for different people, right?
yeah, exactly. And
yeah.
what black consciousness, means for different people. You know what I'm saying? Because not
Right.
everybody's, me personally, I'm a big reader, but not everybody's a big reader, right? And that doesn't invalidate the fact that they have their own experiences and they have their own experiences within their black consciousness. You know what I mean? So, yeah, for me, it's definitely well versed, super well versed. But at the core, being in touch with yourself and your blackness.
Got you. Okay. And we're going to talk about that too, what it means to be black and conscious and, kind of the layers of it and what it really means. Like, is this conscious versus what's not considered to be, doing enough?
Yeah.
But, all right. So for the lady, what do you consider to be black consciousness? Just reiterating that question again.
I would reiterate this idea of being aware of one's black identity,
Okay.
history, and who you are. I would add that, black consciousness also requires you to go beyond just you and your personal experience
Okay.
and your own blackness and be aware of the blackness that exists outside of you that you're connected to. So I think it does really not require, but without reading, you will be limited to a certain amount
Right.
as to how conscious you will be. And
Right.
through studying, the Black experiences in history that are outside of you, I think that will make you more aware of yourself also.
Okay, and that's an interesting point that you made about reading and obviously not reading having a huge role in how conscious can really be, and that goes on to my next point, right? My next point is: would you say that most Black people are socially aware or informed, and why or why not? You can answer first. It doesn't matter who answers first, but would you say in general, Black people? Let's just talk about let's say millennials specifically, right? Millennials, and that's just our age group. That doesn't necessarily mean our socioeconomic class, but just in general, do you feel like we as the people are informed? Why or why not?
I would say I think most people are like aware again of their own experiences. I think that's like the first level of consciousness.
Okay.
Do I think that most or all of us could increase our awareness socially? For sure. I do.
Okay.
I don't think any of us are above that. I think it's
and we'll talk about that too.
Different
how we can.
levels. Yeah.
Okay. And what do you think, man? So do you feel like most Black people are somewhat socially aware within our age group or within the millennial, demographic?
Yeah, I agree with Lade on this one. I think that at that first kind of stage, a lot of folks our age, a lot of Black folks, to be specific, our age, are definitely pretty socially aware of what is going on in America in terms of Black folks, and talk about police violence and the criminal justice system and things like that. But I think when you take it a step further, like Lade just said, nobody's above learning more, nobody's above
Exactly.
reading more, and I think
Right.
that and there's no like super high goal type of level where I have to be at this level and then I'm conscious I don't got to learn again. You know what I'm saying? It's
Exactly.
definitely an ongoing thing. But I think that when you, and I might have recency bias with this, but when you look at right now 2020s and you kind of reverse back to like 10 years,
Right.
and looking at our same kind of age group and things like that, if you were the person that was like super politically inclined, and you talked about things like that, like I was, because I was like a political nerd when I was a kid, right?
Right.
It wasn't cool. Right? It wasn't
Yeah,
cool
it
to
wasn't.
do that
Yes,
at school,
it was
whatever.
not cool.
It wasn't cool to be, it wasn't cool to be conscious. None of that. You know
Right,
what I'm saying?
exactly.
But I think that there has definitely been so much growth in that space,
Right.
and that only opens room, for more growth and more learning within everybody.
Yeah, and I agree with that too. I feel like for the most part, there was a lot of, it wasn't really cool to be conscious or really talk about, the plight of Black people and how we can really, develop ourselves, and if you were, then you seem like, this weird, very angry Black person that's, just talking about political stuff all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I think it's
for
kind of
sure.
interesting to see how that has kind of, developed over time. But to that point though, right? So, we see now that it's kind of, trended, in the direction of kind of being a lot more socially aware generally, at least in our age group specifically. But I think it's kind of interesting to see too, the different, I guess, groups of Black people in this country, and kind of going, on piggybacking off that point again, is this idea of African people's lack of involvement in this social justice movement, right? And specifically, many people say that Africans do not see Black American issues as their issues. And I want to know if you guys agree with that. People out there, these two people are Nigerian. I myself am Nigerian as well. So I kind of wanted to hear you guys' perspective as well. Obviously coming from a Nigerian point of view, but also, living here and actually being, immersed in the culture as well. So I wanted to get you guys' opinion on that. What do you guys think?
Can I first? Are we allowed to go back and answer?
No, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay,
Let's do it, man.
So I really like the point that you touched upon
Okay.
about like the difference, in I would say more like public or common opinion, because that's definitely one thing I've recognized over the past couple of months. Like, I mean, people who used to have so much to say about my involvement, specifically the rhetoric behind the Black Lives Matter movement, not
Right.
even from like our non-Black kind of counterparts, but even within our own community, like 4 or 5 years ago, depending on now.
Right.
But I do still think that there's like a limited like scope or type of consciousness that people are still making space for. And I think that,
So meaning that like you can be conscious, but they're still kind of policing how conscious you can really be.
right, because I still feel like a lot of the Blackness that I speak about, when you try, you intersect it with things like gender, sexuality,
Right.
class,
Right.
people still, you still get that same backlash. Like, here this person goes. I'm not trying to hear all that blah, blah, blah. I think even on Twitter, we recently just had that conversation where with the Ola Toyin situation where people were like, let's finally talk about the intersection. Well, Black women have been talking about it. Black queer people have been talking about it. But Black men, can we
talk
finally,
about it, Queen? Okay.
can we finally talk about, you know, the Black woman's plight
Right.
in America or in the world or whatever? Because I feel like so many times in that conversation, when you try to have it, it's like people, because there's still privilege that exists within the community, will still not try to hear it. Here she goes. Oh,
Right.
here this queen goes. You know, that kind of.
What do you think about
thing.
the word queen, though? Do you think that's offensive, though? I've seen a lot of people talk about it on social media. Is calling a woman a queen offensive to you? I've heard a lot of, you know, different ideology about it, but I wanted to know, like.
I find it funny. To me, it just goes, again, it shows maybe like a lack of like awareness or
Gotcha.
whatever. It's a little hotep. I'm not even gonna lie.
Gotcha.
I just say it.
What do you think about the use of the word queen, man? Do you use it?
Nah, bro.
You don't? You don't call women queens?
It is for sure Hotep. That's why I'm just staying away from it.
But you don't think it's even a little bit funny? Like, yo, yeah.
I mean,
Keep doing your thing, queen.
the thing is, like, a lot of the folks I know that say that are like funny people in general. Like, they're comedians.
okay.
So when they use it, like exactly how you just said, they be like, "Oh, yeah, heard you, queen." Like, you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I don't take them serious. Like
Right.
when they say, it, you know what I'm saying?
I feel that. Okay, so and kind of go back to that question, right? Of African people not really seeing Black American issues as their issues. A lot of people have been saying that, oh yeah, you know, Africans are real quiet on these issues now. But I think it's so interesting because, you know, me being a Nigerian, I feel like a lot of my Nigerian friends are some of the most vocal in terms of this. You know what I mean? And so I think I disagree with that personally because I feel like a lot of my Nigerian friends, a lot of my Ghanaian friends, you know, are people that just are not, you know, were not born here, their parents were not born here, are still very, very involved. So I want to kind of get that from you guys. What do you think?
I think it goes back to like looping it back about the conversation about Black consciousness. Like people need to go beyond just, this is my personal experience and what I believe I observed, and then projecting that to be like what's historically
Facts.
accurate.
Exactly, like,
and like historically, like Black liberation has been global. Black liberation has not just been about like the Black American struggle. And even if you look at like how Black liberation has progressed over the years, like if you study that history, there's always a connection back to the continent.
Right.
We were just talking about Fela Kuti and his family in the
Exactly,
car.
exactly.
Huge activists.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Even like in our generation, like I just feel like that's like very much erasure.
Right.
I understand why some people believe it, you know, diaspora wars and the different ways are pitted against each other.
Yeah,
and
definitely go
whatnot.
listen to Oppression Olympics Part 1 and Part 2, baby. You know what shameless plug.
Yeah, but that's just like not true. It's literally just not actually
But
true.
what makes you think, like, what do you think people are seeing that makes them say, like, yo, bro, like, these Africans out here, man, you know, now they're not trying to be Black. You know what I'm saying? Like,
I think what people
do
are
you think they're
seeing is
Yeah.
that like Americans, I think oftentimes need to understand our understanding of race, ethnicity, and nationality is Western.
Right.
When you are coming from a continent where you're not seeing non-Black people every single day, like Black is not necessarily your most salient identity.
Right.
Until it has to be. It might be what ethnic group you're a part of. You being Yoruba, you know, you being from a certain region within your country.
Right.
We need to understand that, like, we need to have cultural relativism and understand that, like, different societies operate slightly different than us.
Right.
And the things they're still fighting for are still, like, Black liberation, right?
Right.
You know, they're still fighting for, if my granddad is talking about how, you know, his tribe in Nigeria is being malnourished or oppressed or whatever, they're still Black people. That's still Black liberation. So it might sound different. He might not use the same sort of language, but it's still all, the struggle's all connected.
Okay. Got you. What do you think about that, man? So the idea that these Africans out here, you know, well, the Africans are real quiet right now, or I've heard that the Africans or the Jamaicans out there, y'all real quiet right now. You know what I'm saying? Do you agree with that? Do you feel like that's a thing? Do you like, what do you think about those statements? And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, I definitely think that one kind of common theme I've seen is that it's not so much so Africans in our generation, right? Because you like you mentioned, you look at a lot of younger folks now. All three of us here are Nigerian, you know what I'm saying? But I know that a lot of folks as parents are, you know, super, assimilation type folks. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And in that, when and this is even coming from my experience. Although both of my parents are lawyers and things of that nature.
Right.
Coming into America, a lot of it is not so much so assimilation for the sake of I want to be American and nationalism, but so much so to keep themselves safe and us safe. Right. And when I'm out protesting or talking about policy and things like that, a lot of times my dad's like, yo, like tone it down a little bit, this and that, just because his kind of view on activism and organizing and things like that comes from what people see in Nigeria or people see in other African countries. And what it is I don't want to say propaganda, but that's the best word I can use right now. But what you're going to see in other countries outside the United States is, cars on fire, people rioting and things like that.
Right.
So when you say something like, oh, I'm an activist,
that's the first thing you think about.
A lot of African parents in particular are like, oh, so you're going out, you're burning.
Yeah, you're burning stuff.
You know what I'm saying? Exactly. And I think that there's definitely a lot left to be desired, because that's also not monolithic. There are also a lot of you go back to, Lottie just mentioned, the example of Fela, right? You go back and you look at folks who, in the 70s and the 80s were already talking about racism. We're already talking about race. We're already talking about, not even just police brutality, but corruption. And then you look at it up until now, you look at Burna Boy's last album, right? The whole last album was really super dope.
Social issues,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
And that came from somewhere, right?
Exactly.
And going back on the topic of Burna, he talks so much about the fact that everything always comes back home. So when you look at places like Africa, and I'm so happy Lada was mentioning, liberation movements aren't monolithic in the United States, right? There are several examples of liberation movements within African countries, especially in West Africa.
Right.
So I think in the United States in particular, you definitely see that a lot in older kind of African parents and things like that. But I think when you look at this millennial, Gen Z, I don't like using Gen Z because I feel like a kid, so I'm going to say millennial kind of generation.
The younger folks, you know what I'm saying?
I definitely think, when it comes to African folks, we're definitely on the right track. Not everybody is the same, but definitely on the right track.
Okay, and the same question I asked Lottie, right? So why do you think that people are out here saying, oh, y'all Africans not talking, oh, y'all quiet now? What do you think makes people say that? Like, what are they seeing that makes them believe that Africans are not seeing Black American issues as their issues?
Yeah, bro. I mean, look, in the same way I just mentioned how African folks look at the TV and see that,
right?
Exactly. Regular American folks would, see one tweet or something like that, or look on TV and say, oh, African people think that, Black people are this and that. And one thing I've mentioned, one thing I've noticed a lot is that, this rise in middle-aged African Republicans, right? And they're like, oh, racism doesn't exist. All you have to do is, if you work hard,
it's so weird. Right? It's like they don't get it. Yeah, I've seen a lot of that on Twitter too.
And not even giving way to systemic oppression in the United States, not even giving way to police brutality in the United States, not even giving way to economic inequality and gentrification and things like that in the United States. And it's interesting to see when I'm talking to my American friends, right, and they're like, well, when I look at this isn't that, and just even starting with that, when I look at so and so,
right,
and forming their own opinion based off of one thing, that's already irresponsible.
Right.
But a lot of people do it, right, and honestly, I'm guilty as well. A lot of people are guilty as well. People look at Twitter and form opinions. We just saw that with Tory Lanez and Megan. You know what I'm saying? Like people literally would look at something. And automatically have an opinion in their head, not saying they have to act on it, but there are already things in their head. But when it comes to, complex kind of situations like how Africans view the Black Lives Matter movement, which is already kind of broad in scope, I'm not counting on the average regular Black American person to go too much in depth to that. So when I hear them say, this is what I've seen, so this is what I think. I'm disappointed, but I'm not surprised.
Exactly.
This is what I'm talking about. Like, niggas gotta read. Like,
let's speak on it.
Niggas gotta read.
Let's talk about that, though.
There's ignorance on both parts.
Right.
I feel like again, somebody's coming over here. Like, they're the context, the country, the social norms, the social issues that they're going through or dealing with, they're framed slightly different. And so they're coming into a new environment. You know, they might not have experienced systemic racism like the same way that you have. And so, you know, they might have to educate themselves on what that looks like in the United States.
Okay.
So I can understand why that's kind of like viewed like, oh, they don't understand. They might not, they're coming from a different country. Maybe they haven't had to understand yet. I think another thing that's not talked about enough is the classism in like immigration, right? So I think people need to talk about it. I think people need to recognize.
I'm sitting at the table. Let's talk about it, man.
First of all, Africa is a huge continent.
Right.
Very populated, very diverse.
Right.
So first of all, like this whole grouping of Africans think this, Africans
exactly,
say that,
like people
always confuses me. But the Africans, specifically Nigerians that we see over here, are oftentimes the ones who are more well off in their countries. That's why they're able to come over here
in the first place. Exactly.
Mm-hmm. If you were in America to ask, you know, the more well-off black folk how they feel about rioting, burning cars, whatever,
They hate it.
it would be the same type of rhetoric. Mm-hmm. They're privileged they are the exception in their group.
Right.
So I don't think that's more so like an African versus American thing. It's a class thing oftentimes.
Yeah.
Like you said, your parents are doctors and lawyers. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? If you go to Nigeria and you go hang out with some area boys, they'll probably be more with the shits.
That's a fact, though.
You know, so
that's true
for sure. It's just like and of course, like it makes sense that these are the black Republicans that you see. They're more well off. Mm-hmm. Same if I was to go to Hyde Park and go kick it with the Obamas, those niggas be on the same type of shit. So
that's a fact. Okay, and to that point though, right? So I'm glad you brought that up. You know, in terms of class and in terms of the elites, I guess, thinking of things in a different light. Because I kind of wanted to get you guys' perspective on what are your thoughts on celebrities providing opinions on these kind of things, right? So do celebrities' opinions? Let's talk about it. So we're talking about obviously how these higher class black people for the most part are probably going to agree with the ideas of oh, y'all being too rowdy or y'all doing too much, you know what I mean? But okay, in terms of celebrities, right? So do celebrity opinions truly matter? So many people have been looking for celebrities to speak out on social inequalities and social injustices and take action. So do you believe that their voices and actions truly matter?
They do, but they should not.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
That's a fact.
You want to go?
Yeah, I mean,
either y'all. It don't matter.
So, celebrity culture is just so problematic in so many ways, especially in the black community. Like
death to celebrity culture,
shade room culture, all of that. There's so much to unpack.
Shade room, I read that one for him. Shade room culture. Jesus Christ.
There's so much to unpack with that. But I think that, I mean, when just even mentioning like stuff like T.I. and the shade room and stuff like that, right?
Right.
It shouldn't be that way where one thing you say, 20 million people are going to be like, oh, he said this. Let's unpack this. But
exactly.
The thing is, and this is where I've kind of stood on this. If you are going to use your platform to speak on something in regards to this movement for Black lives, don't say some bullshit. Like,
and we're gonna talk about that too.
No, point blank, like that's what I'm saying. Like, people have got to read. Like, stop talking when you don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
And like celebrities, their jobs is to perform, entertain.
Right.
They're not organizers. They're not the ones reading about this stuff oftentimes. So why we're looking to them for direction when Angela Davis is very much alive.
Right.
Like other organizers
I don't know why
are very much alive. Like I know they're easily accessible. That's why they're put on a pedestal. That's who we want to go to for answers. But I think that they've shown, if you didn't know before, that they don't necessarily have the range. They didn't do the pre-reading. And I think it's very irresponsible for people to be, with such big platforms, to be using them irresponsibly. I don't know if y'all saw when Kanye came out and said he was a Trump supporter, how much in the black Trump's favorability with black people went up after Kanye.
I'm sure it did.
Because
they're like, because they're like, like if this black guy's supporting him, then he must be on to some shit. You know what I'm saying?
He made graduation, so I might as well.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so for some niggas, that's literally all it takes, and that's why I feel like it's so dangerous. Like this idea of like people asking celebrities to speak out, because niggas, like you said, could just say some nonsense. For example, what's his name? His coon ass, Terry Crews.
Oh my God.
Terry Crews is probably one of the biggest coons in the world, right? But to the white people of the world, right? Terry Crews is in those white spaces often. He does a lot of these, white films or whatever, white shows, whatever the case is. So when they hear him, they're like, oh shit, well, this black person thinks this way. You know what I'm saying? So not only are white people just gonna take what he said, but now black people are like, like you said, the favorability of Trump went up. So some black people, as much as people are calling him a coon on the timeline, there's other people that are like, damn, this nigga might be onto something.
And that's what we need to that is systemic racism. Like, we need to understand how we're being finessed.
Okay.
Like, it's not every day white people calling us, the N-word with a hard ER.
Right.
Like, people need to understand the function of, like, the exceptional black person. So these black people who have somehow made it to, have these positions of power. Exactly. They have more stake to conform to the way of, like, the dominant group or whatever. And the dominant group,
to maintain that system,
they're gonna keep, pulling their string. You know what I'm saying?
Keep dancing.
So why would you listen to those people? How do you think they got where they got?
They have to do some dancing.
Right.
As much as people don't want to admit it, there's definitely a level of dancing you have to do that. For sure.
For sure.
Okay, and to that point though, right? So we're talking about, I guess, kind of do their opinions matter, but so let's go to the action side of things. So would you say that it matters if their actions are coming from a genuine place? So, and what I mean by that is posting things so they don't get canceled, right? So let's say, for example, these brands that are making these statements, they'll post like, white text on a black screen talking about how much they value black lives and how, we will do everything we can in our power to make sure that, black people feel loved. So from that point of view, how do you feel about that? What if you do you feel like it's coming from a genuine place for some versus others, and why not?
I'd like to clarify what you said. Their actions matter, whether they're good or bad. They matter because they have influence.
Because it's impact. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Re-ask the question.
So the question once again is, do you think that the actions of celebrities or these large corporations really matter in reference to, if they are genuine or not, right?
Yeah.
So like you said, there's that impact, thing, right? So them saying something or doing something, people see that, but does it matter to you that it may or may not be coming from a genuine place of actual care and desire to really push something better?
Doesn't matter to me.
So for example, a lot of people get on like Kim Kardashian's ass for, whatever she was doing in terms of trying to get certain black people out of jail, right?
Yeah. And
I want to get from you guys, right? So let's say she's just doing that to build up her brand because she knows that by doing that, black people are gonna like her more. Mm-hmm. She is getting black people out of jail though, right? Or doing whatever she can in order to make that happen. But what if it's coming from a sense of I'm doing this because I'm Kim Kardashian and I'm trying, run my numbers up a little bit?
No, it matters to me.
Yeah. I feel like you can read people too. My bad. I feel like you can really, read how much someone is invested into doing something, right? When you
what are the signs? What are the signs? Elaborate on
I want to use like the no name J Cole kind of thing.
Let's talk about it, man.
And here's the thing. I've definitely been like a self-proclaimed Cole fan for a minute.
Right.
And when the whole thing went down with No Name, I was definitely disappointed. But I think that out of that, I came to realize a couple of things. The first thing being that, looking at No Name wasn't always a super conscious type rap person, right? And that came out of.
So she got dragged, right?
Right. It came out of missteps. But the thing is, and I'm so happy we're reiterating this. The thing is, out of that misstep, there, was a choice. You could either, kind of go with it, keep it pushing, whatever, or you could start reading, start learning, start educating yourself.
Yeah.
And she went from that to literally being like radical Marxist type thing. You know what I'm saying? Like starting a book club. And in that, you can see that she was taking those steps to unlearn the problematic things that she was saying. And, if every person that ever got canceled went that route, the world would be great right now.
Period.
But not everybody is interested in reading and learning and stuff like that. People want to check, and I don't want to say that's okay, but if that's your, if that's what you want to do, you go and do that.
Right.
But don't come into this movement being performative, you know, and come out and saying, oh,
We're going to talk about the performative word too,
No.
man. Oh, man.
Joseph been waiting.
Performative.
throw up, you know, and don't throw up Black Lives Matter one time and then go back to, you know, your whole
Doing what you're doing.
timeline being, you know, going out, smoking, drinking, doing whatever you're doing. Because, and not even to say you got to, you know, tweet Black Lives Matter.
We gonna talk about that too,
right?
because yeah, we'll talk
Not even
about
saying,
that balance.
and not even saying you got to tweet Black Lives Matter every day, right?
Right,
But,
right.
you know, it shows in the concrete steps that you're taking, you know, and I don't want to, you know, make No Name's example monolithic, but it's an excellent example of how somebody went from one stage in their, you know, own understanding of their blackness into another stage completely. And that was really amazing for me to see. So
I
and that's one of
agree.
my favorite albums.
I agree.
Okay. All right, and just kind of piggybacking off that again, right? So you're talking about this idea of, you know, cancel culture, pretty much putting some people in their place and giving them the opportunity to develop their points of view or not, right? So there have been other people like that. So we mentioned No Name versus J. Cole, right? But there have been other people that are not necessarily as big, but have voiced kind of opinions and kind of received backlash as well, such as B. Simone or Desi Banks, right? Where, you know, people were speaking out and people didn't give him a shot. At that point, they're just like, you know what? We're canceling these niggas. Like, y'all, you're whack
Is
anyway.
that what happened? Like, nobody actually gets. I don't understand why it's called cancel.
Cancel culture in itself is fake. I mean, you know, people say that to ride the wave for a little bit, and then they like, hey, I was watching Desi Banks videos yesterday. Fuck you talking about? You know what I'm saying? I mean, although I never said I was canceling that nigga, so that was on y'all. But
And they are doing it intentionally. Again, why people need to see how they're being finessed. Like, black
Right.
outrage is very, very marketable.
exactly, and I feel like a lot of these companies know that, and a lot of these companies put out certain things or put out certain headlines in a certain way because they know, like, once Black Twitter gets it, it's gonna,
it's over.
Yeah.
it's going for a ride.
And
But
niggas fall for it every time.
it's really tragic. But to that point, though, right? So I wanted to know. So for people that like that are ignorant, I know you made the point that they shouldn't speak at all, but Lade made the point that, you know what I'm saying, they have this voice, so they should be speaking. So where do we find that balance here, right? So there's an issue of, should celebrities that don't know what the hell they're talking about not speak at all, or should they speak a little bit and they'll say something small?
I just
You know
think
what I'm
that
saying?
it's just like a general rule of thumb, celebrity, not celebrity. You should probably like know what you're talking about before you start talking. Like, and I think black celebrities should want to have a place in the
knowledge on it.
movement,
Exactly.
but you need to do your homework before you just start blabbing off at the mouth. Like,
Okay.
That's what really makes a smart person smart. It's not that you're
Reading,
always
exactly, learning more.
It's not that you always know what you're talking about. It's just, I mean, that you always have the right answer. It's that you're usually not going to speak until you've done the work of trying to find the answer.
Okay. And what do you think about that in terms of like these celebrities kind of being bashed, and you're saying that they shouldn't speak at all? Do you think they should not say anything, or do you think they should wait, learn, and then speak?
Yeah, so I don't think they shouldn't speak at all.
Okay.
But I think
So
definitely.
you're backtracking a little bit because
No,
before you
but
said you
things-
said
things
you
I
were
never
gonna say
said-
something.
No. Here's what
All right.
I said. I said
talk
if
about it.
if you are like out trying to. So here's like when I said that, I used an example of somebody like Ti, right? Where you don't know shit, but you are insistent on going in front of cameras and saying some shit. So in that kind of situation, you shouldn't be saying shit.
Yeah.
But if you are somebody who doesn't know too much about, you know, just all of the, you know, different things that bring this movement together, definitely do your due diligence in learning and speaking with folks. If you're a celebrity with like 10, 20 million followers, people like, and just say, hey, if, you know, you are someone who is, you know, pretty, you know, well versed in this movement, can you please, you know, send some books my way, or can you send, you know, some points my way and things like that? People will actually give them to you because you're who you are. You know what I'm saying? It's
Right.
not impossible, and that's
Right.
why it's also kind of disappointing to me, because all of this information to you is probably a hell of a lot easier for you to get
Very accessible,
instantly
yeah.
than anybody else.
Right.
So the fact that you're not
Going out of your way to
going out of your way to do it
Exactly.
is you know, it's kind of sad.
Very
It's a fact.
lazy. Very
But,
lazy.
Okay. And to that point, though, right? So they can go out and get this information, but what do you say about people that don't speak out on these things, right? So instead of sitting back instead of coming out and saying something stupid, they just don't speak at all. For example, like, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but has somebody like Jay-Z said anything about what the hell is going on? Jay-Z's kind of, let's talk
One
about
is
it.
beneficial
Let's
for
talk
him.
about it. What's that?
One is beneficial for him. Again, I
You
just
see what I'm saying?
like
Like, so he's a very, very big name in the in the black community, very prominent, right? But this is somebody who has a very large platform and who a lot of people would really listen to if he were to come out and say something. But I feel like, why are people picking on the little guys? You know what I'm saying? I feel like people are not going for the Jay-Z's. Obviously, Kanye's doing whatever the hell Kanye does. But like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
because they like them, they look up to them. I don't know. I really try not to give into like celebrity culture, like past the Kikis, laughing at Rolling Ray, Santana, whatever. I really don't care. I don't even want to like this conversation. I feel like we could even better be using it talking about people who actually are doing the work. Like celebrities are just I kind of agree with what you're saying. Like they're not. What is their stake in being truly invested in this?
Exactly.
Stuff?
Like they have nothing to gain because they're directly benefiting from
right.
this oppressive system.
So I guess that's why I don't even like care. Like I'm not even gonna put hope that Jay-Z is gonna really be about
because at
shit.
the end of the day, it's also like, who really gives a fuck what Jay-Z has to say? Because at the end of the day, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, who gives a damn what Jay-Z has to say? Because Jay-Z ain't out here dealing with what niggas is dealing with. You know what I'm saying? Because he feels like he's, out there and he's not dealing with these black issues. I think that's what it is, bro.
I think we shouldn't care. I think we shouldn't care. I don't care. I think, unfortunately, most niggas care.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But these niggas, these celebrity niggas, I think that's why they don't be speaking out. Because they can't relate. You know what I'm saying? To a certain degree, I feel like they believe that they cannot relate. Like,
I think that's the key.
Like,
they believe.
They believe
don't
that they can.
want.
No. They are just as black as we are. But they feel like these issues do not
no longer affect
like. I
them.
remember I was watching the Dave Chappelle special. Dave Chappelle was talking about how he got pulled over, and the cop was like, "Oh shit, you're Dave Chappelle." If I get pulled over, shit, I'm just another nigga in DC. You know what I'm saying? So it's different in that way in terms of like, okay, they don't necessarily. Although Dave Chappelle talks about issues, but I mean he's controversial in himself. But anyway, I think it kind of varies based on the celebrity too in terms of like what they are willing to voice. But like I said, for real, who gives a fuck what they have to say? But anyway, transition point, right? So we're gonna talk about the people that are actually in the trenches doing what they got to do. And I want to specifically talk about protesting. I know that the both of y'all are very involved, especially in the DC area. These two people right here, ladies and gentlemen, are very, very, big on that. You know what I'm saying?
He's doing.
He said, "I don't take no credit. All glory to God." Nah, but no. But specifically though, I wanted to talk about that. But I wanted to talk about it. Like I said, these are two people that I feel like and that I've seen are genuinely in these streets. You feel me? But I wanted to talk about that too, kind of the people that are in these streets but are not really in these streets, right? And specifically, you brought up this word, and this is a word that's been thrown around a lot too. Performative. So I wanted to talk about the performative nature of protesting, right? So although many people attend protests in order to cause a disruption, to draw attention to social issues, there are many people who attend these protests for perception purposes, looking like they get it or, not trying to be the one person who didn't go. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to know, is that okay? We've talked about celebrities in terms of they have this voice. So even if they're saying whatever, there's still some level of impact. So everyday people, is that okay for them to attend these protests, but for the wrong reasons? You know what I'm saying? They're going because they're trying to post some shit on the gram. Or they're going because they know if they don't go, niggas gonna be like, "Wow, you're not with the movement." So either y'all can go first, don't matter. All right.
I don't want to say that it's for the wrong reason. Are you talking about black people or not?
Black people. We're gonna talk about the non-black people too, man. We have a lot to discuss today.
I think that black people can't go to protests for the wrong reason. Like they're literally black. They're protesting their own lives. I think the level of consciousness, maybe like the level of activism, like how deep it goes can vary, their commitment to the cause. So like, yes, are some people shallower than others?
Right.
For sure.
So you're saying black people, the fact that they're there, so are you part of like at least they're there delegation where it's like, yeah, you're black, so you're here, so you're 100% in support out the gate? Like,
I cannot police people's blackness. Like I can't tell people what they can and can't do or how they want to. They're affected by these issues.
Exactly, but does it not matter? Okay, so like for example, I always say this example because I just thought it was so crazy to me. But like, there was a protest. I think it was the week after the murder of George Floyd. Mm-hmm. That whole week, there was a lot going on in DC, and I think I was out of town that weekend, but the next weekend I came to DC, and I just saw a lot of people just like drinking and smoking and twerking and throwing wine and stuff like that, in this, protest environment, which I thought was very interesting because I feel like a lot of it became kind of like, just like a function type of
shit,
thing.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like a lot of people really just pulled up for the vibes, and that really bothered the shit out of me personally. So I don't know, like, does that not bother y'all too? Like, I don't know, that the idea of like, I don't know, I feel like if you're gonna be there, I feel like you should be there. Like Lade said, you're affected by this, right? So should there not be a certain level of seriousness that people come into it with? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, am I bugging? Either y'all.
Well,
It's just definitely a slippery slope.
Let's talk about it, man.
I
Said it's a
feel
slippery slope. Let's
like
talk about it,
we
man.
talked about this, Joseph.
We
I
have.
think that Black joy and Black happiness
It's
is
a
a
form
form
of
of
protest.
is a form of protest
Okay.
and radicalism in itself.
Okay.
Again, I think that what the issue, like if we unpack it, what the issue is, if your care or your commitment to the cause is shallow, there are serious limits as to like what progress it's gonna make.
Right.
Hence why you see so many people burnt out after a week or two
Exactly.
because the roots are not deep enough.
Exactly.
That's the issue I think with like surface level. I don't even want to say surface level, but like not as deep, I guess, kind of commitments to the cause.
Okay.
That's like what I think is where the harm lies.
So it's just like kind of like people scratching the surface, but they don't really care to get past it, and so there's
When
not,
you only scratch the surface, how far can we get?
facts. Okay, and what are your thoughts on this, man? People pulling up to protest for the vibes.
Honestly, I really feel everything Lada was saying. When a good example is Juneteenth, right?
Okay.
Black Lives Matter Plaza, Juneteenth was beautiful.
Right.
And seeing just so much black joy and pure black joy. Honestly, like I said, I'm from New York. I never really was jacking go-go like that.
Just jacking it.
Yeah, facts, my guy.
But I'll be honest. After Juneteenth, I was a fan. Like, yo, it was so crazy.
It was
to
very
see.
good vibe.
Yeah,
It was
very
it was
high energy. Yeah.
It was so crazy. Just the energy, like this, the beautiful vibes out of everybody. The togetherness out of everybody was so amazing. And I think that in itself, like Lada was just saying, is protest as well.
Right.
And I don't want to be the one. I'm not the protest police. You know what I'm saying?
Right,
So I'm
right.
not gonna come out and be like, oh, you're not doing 3 chants a second, so you're out of here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you know what I'm saying? But I think, of course, right? You, especially in week 1 and week 2, you were seeing a lot of people, coming out, obviously doing
The rage was high.
some things out of the ordinary. But what is so important is that a lot of folks, for example, like I saw a group of people come in, and I talked to them afterwards. And I saw a group of people come in, but we were, demonstrating in, I think it was at the White House, and this was like probably 3rd or 4th day, and they kind of came in. It was like, yo. My live want me to tell Donald Trump to suck my dick, so they started to suck my dick chant. Like, and I was just like, "Yo, what is going on?"
Y'all taking away from
But the thing is though, like, people who are within places like Ward 8, right, where it's just you see police everywhere, Southeast, Anacostia, where you see police everywhere, and people like that. And people grow up, in those situations, and they experience this every day. I'm not about to tell them what they're doing is wrong, and they can't protest that way. You know what I'm saying? Because
right.
the fact that they're out here and they're still doing what they got to do, granted, how much progress will it make in the long term? We could talk about that. That's a different conversation.
Right.
But I'm not going to be out here saying that what they're doing is wrong, quote unquote.
But that's what I'm saying. Though. Like, what does a "suck my dick" chant do in the grand scheme of things?
Well,
You feel
this
me?
is how I think about the purpose of protesting.
Let's talk about it.
Protesting is meant to be disruptive to
Right.
like the ways of like what the dominant society is doing.
Exactly.
Black people being happy, Black people being ratchet and ghetto, that is disruptive.
disruptive, yeah.
So to me, like that's kind of like what I'm like, okay, do I want to participate in this way? Is it disruptive? Yes, all right. It's like to me, okay, I can do that. If it's not disruptive, to me personally, that's kind of like my criteria as to like, okay, maybe this won't be, in my opinion, as effective. That's personally how I look at it. So suck my dick, burning shit down, whatever. Technically, people don't like it because it's not respectable.
Yeah,
right?
I was just about to say that. How do you feel about that? Like the idea of like saying these vulgar chants or throwing shit, not even throwing shit, but just saying these vulgar chants and stuff like that, right? And they're like, oh, like these people won't listen to us because we're not coming at them in this way.
I hate
There's definitely a group of people that's like, man, if we this is protest, just let's just disrupt, blah blah, break off some streets, but like don't say no suck my dick chance. You know what I'm saying? Like that's too much.
Well, you know me. You know I'm like extremely anti-respectability politics. So
That's a
I
fact.
love.
She is, ladies and gentlemen.
I'm with all this shit. I love all that shit. So
Okay.
that's me personally. Because my thing is like, how is working within white people's, like what white people say is proper behavior? How is that disruptive?
Yeah,
like-
exactly. Okay. Okay, and to that point though, right? So I kind of wanted to talk about that too, because we talked about the disruptive nature of it, and we talked about week 1, week 2, right? And you said you were out there, in the front lines and things like that. Both of y'all were, like I said, but I wanted to talk about that in terms of keeping that same energy, right? So as we can see, at least on my timeline has for the most part gone back to normal, with the exception of the occasional protest flyer or Breonna Taylor meme, which I personally don't like at all. Like Breonna Taylor, I remember you posted that specifically. You can talk about that, but this whole Breonna Taylor, like obviously we want we want her, the people that murdered her, to be held responsible. But turning her into a damn meme and putting her at the end of little TikTok videos and shit like that. What the fuck is that? What is that doing? You feel me? Like I feel like people, and we're gonna talk about that too in reference to how people, like how differently people react to, black women versus black men in reference to, their plight too. So I wanted you to just kind of speak on that a little bit in terms of keeping that same energy. Do you guys feel like you've seen that on your timeline as well? A lot of people have archived their Blackout Tuesday posts where they posted on the timeline the black screen and things like that. People, and then like we're talking about that again, in terms of being performative. But I kind of wanted to understand from you, why do you guys feel like that continues to happen, right? Why do you feel like the energy and rage is high early, and then it kind of dies down, and it's back to the memes, it's back to the jokes, until the next police brutality story comes? Like, why do you think that is? Like, what do you guys believe from people that are, from a well-read and, experienced standpoint, right? Like, what do you guys think is the root cause of that? Either of y'all. Because I really want to know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how people can go from literally being, like, about that action.
You make me so nervous. Like whenever you say like well-read or whatever, I'm like,
yeah, well-read, man.
Nah.
Man,
Niggas is just doing their small part. Don't listen to him.
Hey, that's how they be, man. All glory to God.
Nah, I stand for real. I could definitely do more reading.
I could do more than I'm doing. All right, man. No, I mean, shit, y'all niggas read more than my ass. But anyway, to that point though, I wanted to kind of understand from you guys, why do you feel like the energy shifts, right? We don't seem as a people to keep that same energy. Why do you think that is? Why does the energy consistently decline over time?
I think we have to be really careful when we say that.
Okay.
I think that when we say that our people as the energy shifts, or people aren't consistently on the ground, it again erases the work of the people who are consistently on the ground are doing. I was telling Joe about this girl I know who's been protesting for 27 days straight. Amazing. There have been people who have been out there every single day since George Floyd was murdered. There are people who are really doing this work day in and day out. I attempt to be one of those people. Right. I can do better. Right. I'm on the path to do better. But I think one thing for people to ask themselves, if their timeline is going back to normal, if they're hearing about things less, is who's your circle? Right. Who do you follow? Why are you not? Exactly. And again, I think the reason why, the majority of people, I think there's a bunch of psychological reasons as to why people get, this stuff is tiring. It's exhausting. You don't want to always be thinking about it. Exactly. And so again, going back to what I was saying before, you need to have strong roots in Black liberation and your fight for Black freedom if you're going to continue. When I say like, it is exhausting, like I've probably never been as tired as I was those weeks I was out there protesting. That's why I actually appreciated the Juneteenth celebration. It was really, if you were out there and it was a reset for sure. Yeah. But yeah, you need to have really strong roots in this. You need to have accountability partners. You need to constantly be educating yourself. You need to find out what self-care for you looks like. You need to have a community that keeps you going. So if the only people you're talking to are like we're like, okay, back to society. Right. The next
RIP society, man. Shit. Hey, they're open, man. Nah. Anyway, continue though.
If they're the only people you see and you're just kind of like, it's easier to get discouraged, when you when you really commit yourself to this stuff, like it'll be easier for you to stay out there, I think.
Okay. So for you, it's more so like you think it's a result of your circle.
I think it's a result. I think that is a result of you potentially having opportunity to more so root yourself in the cause. I think
Right.
your circle can be one of the ways in which you further put roots
Right.
into like how committed you are to the cause.
Okay, that makes sense. And what do you think, man? So why do you like? Have you noticed? So two questions, right? So have you noticed the decline? You know, just from a social standpoint, so you physically, you know, social media, things like that. Have you noticed a decline in, you know, the level of energy and rage being committed towards the Black Lives Matter movement, and you know, just general, just the anger, the energy? Do you feel like that's kind of shifted, or you know, increased or declined since you know, specifically the death of George Floyd?
Yeah, I think it, you know, to what Lade was saying, it depends on, you know, what your circle is. You know, for me, I mean, obviously, you know, everybody I follow is either, it's almost a mix, but it's definitely just a lot of, you know, organizing folk, people in this organizing space, in this activism space and things like that.
Right.
So for me, I'm still seeing, you know, 10,000 people in London, 20,000 people in Paris coming out. And it's literally the past few days, you know, people are still out here, man. People are still protesting. People are still going hard. And that's, you know, it goes for black folks and non-black folks as well. Non-black allies are really going hard as well that I've seen. And listen, I'm the first person to be super anti-giving white people cookies, but I've definitely seen a lot of white allies literally
We're gonna talk about
taking it
this,
serious.
man, and giving white people cookies.
But you know, when you speak to the, you know, physical and mental state of people, this work is super taxing, bro.
Yeah.
I got to a point, you know, I want to say like a month in, where I was, you know, waking up, you know, day of protest, and we were our group Concerned Citizens. We were at a point where we were doing protests every other day, right? And it was a point where I was literally just almost like breaking down, like, you know, still seeing,
facts.
you know, because you, at the end of the day, you're still going out and yet you're still seeing folks being mistreated in so many
They
so
were
many different
fucking
areas.
us up out there. Like they
In so
were
many
really
different
fucking
areas.
our shit up.
Right, and like it's crazy because there was, I don't want to say there was a dead period. There was definitely a period where, you know, things were definitely turning more strategic, and then the day of the statue came, right? And it was so crazy because we were out at, again, the White House, like we were literally just, you know, speaking, demonstrating, things like that, and then within seconds, like that whole statue kind of thing started, and I was just like, yo, what the hell is going on, right? And after that day, again, it went back into that overdrive. You know, I'm going into overdrive. You know, I'm getting tired, and you know, speaking to folks in my group too. You know, we've all definitely expressed that, you know, level of being tired, and it shows, and you know, in the way y'all talk to each other, if y'all have disagreements and things like that and stuff like that. You know, people get exhausted, and you know, to say that, I definitely want to say it's okay to take breaks, right? It's okay to take time for yourself. And Lade mentioned self-care. Self-care looks different for a lot of different people, and especially you know, to black folks within the space, we definitely have to respect whatever it is that self-care is looking for somebody. Because I'm never gonna shame somebody who's been out here doing this work, or even if you haven't been out here every single day, who's committed themselves to this work, to take for taking time for themselves. Because you know, outside of just either, you know, if you're working on policy, if you're a person that's on the front lines and things that on the ground, whatever you're doing to give yourself to this movement is commendable to me. Especially if you've been doing it especially for the folks who've been doing it consistently. Shaming somebody for taking a break and saying, "Oh, you're not a real activist because you're not out here 24/7." Not everybody's built for that. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. Okay, and that's great that you brought that point.
And activism doesn't look one way. Protesting is super important. If you can get out there, I highly encourage you to. We've seen the positive things that come from it.
Exactly.
But the work is so much larger than that.
Exactly.
Even me, I've pulled back from going out and protesting due to things such as COVID, physical exhaustion, and not being able to manage that with like my day-to-day job, unfortunately.
Right.
And so I sat and I had to think, okay, how am I going to...
What else can I do?
What else can I do?
Exactly.
What other roles can I play in the movement? And there's definitely long-term strategic things. I mean, protesting is long-term and strategic. Other long-term strategic things that you can be doing if that doesn't work for you or you need to take a break from that, there really should be no excuse, in my opinion, for you to be doing nothing. Nothing at all.
Nothing. Yeah, that's pretty wild. I agree with that. Okay, and to that point though, right? So there are different ways to, make some type of impact, right, in terms of the movement. And I kind of wanted to ask you guys, right? So is it okay to not be on the front lines and support when you can, or should all black people feel a deep desire to be heavily involved daily? I know you said that at a point you guys were doing protests every other day, right? So I wanted to know, like, one thing I always say is that I feel like it should come from a genuine place. So I kind of want to get you guys' opinion on that too. Like, do you feel like to a certain degree some black people are harder on other fellow black people? Or do you feel like we are being as hard as on each other as we should? You know what I mean? In terms of applying pressure and really encouraging each other, like, yo, we should be out here because this shit affects you too. How do y'all feel about that? So the idea of, I guess, people saying you should want to do more because this affects you.
Yeah,
versus I'm doing more because this matters to me.
You should want to do more because this affects you.
but as he was talking about though, non-black allies are doing whatever the fuck they're doing because, they see this group of people and they feel like, that's unfair. So that's why they're acting on it, right? But I'm saying as black people specifically, right? What do you feel about people? Because I know there's, people out there as well that are always quick to point fingers like, you can do this, you can do that, you can do this, you can do that. But for some people, like you said, some people just don't exert that level of energy into it. So I kind of wanted to get from you guys.
That's not what I said.
Okay, no, I didn't say. Did I say she said that? Yeah. I think I said.
You did that twice today.
Oh. Hey.
What I said is that your activism doesn't have to look the same.
Okay.
But you do need to be doing something.
Okay.
I am one of those people on my timeline is what the fuck are you all doing? Especially because the spaces that we move in, we are some of the most privileged black people. Yeah. We have more of a responsibility to do more. We also benefit off of the work that other people are doing.
Exactly.
Y'all don't think other people who are out there aren't tired?
I'm sure they are, for sure.
They're
yeah,
tired
exactly.
as hell. You don't think our ancestors was tired? Our forefathers were tired? So it's just one thing I try to tell myself whenever I need that kind of like energy to keep going is if other people stopped, if other people were less invested, where would I be?
Right.
So yeah, people need to be doing more.
Okay. So and to that point though, right? So did you want to speak on that as well, or before I moved on, or? Okay, cool. So I wanted to address this too, though. So in terms of people doing what they can within the black community, and also just encouraging our own people to, do more than they're already doing, because I feel like, everybody, we can do more, you know what I mean, ultimately. But kind of talking about the other side of things, right? The allies, right? But, I already brought up the buzzword already, but I wanted to talk about performative allyship, right? So I wanted to know from you guys, do you think that these, non-black people are speaking up now because they finally see that what, the state of the country and the state of the world, like what is happening to black people is wrong? Or do you feel like this is just their way of trying to shut us up? Yeah. Deep side, J Ade Podcast, baby. You know the vibe.
I hate talking about white people, man.
Come on, man. We talking about it, man. We landing this plane right now. Let's do it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, here's my thing, and this goes back to what we were saying at the very beginning, right?
Let's talk about it.
When I was in high school, and Trayvon Martin was like middle school for me.
Jesus Christ.
Talking about
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, you know what I'm saying? I ain't gonna react like that, man.
But
continue.
But looking at Ferguson, right? Take Ferguson for example. And when I started, kind of mentioning that, talking about that, probably two, and that might also be dependent on where I went to school, but there was probably. But no, I mean, even though I'm from New York, there was probably like one or two white people who was really, kind of down with it. Everybody else was like, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, what was sparking was this, kind of modern day movement for Black lives that was coming out. And it was still so new that it was still, this super taboo thing to talk about, that people still thought it was political and not human rights, like literally people's lives. You know what I'm saying? So bringing that into today now, honestly, viral culture, social media culture, and things like that, have definitely forced people out. I can't speak to whether non-white allies are always, and I don't want to call them allies, but non-white folks in general coming out are always genuine, because I'm not white.
Right.
So I don't know what's going on within their spaces, what they're talking about, whatever. But I want to say, one thing I want to say though, is that a hell of a lot of people are talking now to avoid getting canceled, or to avoid being that one white guy that's not saying something.
We're talking about that earlier as well. Yep.
So to that, I almost want to say, yo, if you're gonna be that person that doesn't speak on shit, if you're gonna be that white person, not speaking to black folks, you want that white person that doesn't speak on shit, that wants to be racist or whatever, yo, go out there and do that and be bold with that, and don't come out here, being fake and come in and infiltrate this and come in within this, because I personally want people to come out and do things because they want to, and not feel like they're forced to do them, because then comes this kind of grudging spirit of doing things and coming out and speaking, because I'm not even speaking, but just literally just coming out and protesting, right? I've never ever went up to a white person and forced them to protest or forced them to do anything, because at the end of the day, this work is getting done with black folks regardless, right? So yeah, that's how I feel, man.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on that? So in terms of performative allyship, do you feel like this has come from places like, we finally get it, like damn, like we're really
No.
Or so you think it's all BS? Performative allyship.
No.
Okay, let's talk about it, man.
Okay.
Let's talk.
First, I don't think that they're finally getting it, because absolutely nothing about the story or understanding of what has happened has changed, except for the fact that, again, this is how we don't get finessed. Just think about this logically. The stakes have changed. They now have stakes. There's now a reason for them to have to care or pretend to care.
Right, because Black Lives Matter.
Whether they really, whether they really care or don't, I don't really put too much thought into it.
Right.
Non-Black people are not too much my concern. I think that we actually slow ourselves down when we actually put a lot of our effort or thought into what they're doing and how they're supporting us. And that's, I don't want to butcher Toni Morrison's quote about how that actually serves as a huge distraction for us in liberation, being so consumed with that. But the stakes have changed for them. So where now it's kind of like, oh, okay, you want black people to work for this company, you want black people to stop burning shit down, you want to whatever, then you need to speak on it. You need to speak or show this concern. Genuine or not, I don't know. I have my hypotheses, but I don't.
You don't really care. I think it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't really. It's not. It's at the bottom of my list of things to be concerned about, and I just think that a focus needs to be on us, because it's interesting. You said it's not political and it's a human rights issue. I think for black people, they're one and the same. Human rights is political for us. And it's not for white people. That's why white people can afford to not care.
That's true.
So when people are like, "Oh, it's not politics," or one, political and politics are different, but it's not political. Unfortunately for us, everything is political. So that's who I focus on.
Okay.
The people who I know have to care.
All right. Cool. Okay, and to round it up though, I wanted to ask you guys both, right? And I know you guys said you hate the idea of being called well-versed or experienced or whatever the case is, but the fact of the matter is, in our age group, y'all doing the damn thing. So I wanted to kind of get some insight from you guys before we close it out. What do you think are ways, or tangible ways, in which we can contribute to our cause? So we talked about protesting, right? But what are other ways? I know that, Laddie's a huge advocate of nigga read and find out some damn ways to contribute to the cause. However, for those who don't read, for those who are listening to this, what are ways that they can make some tangible change right where they're sitting listening to this?
You can't not read. I'm sorry. You
Okay.
can't not read.
Okay.
Change the medium as to which you're receiving. Get a fucking Kindle, nigga. Go on Google, read articles. We can shrink that shit down if you need us to, but you cannot not read.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I don't enjoy reading. I don't think it's necessarily fun, but it's necessary. That's
exactly
what their information is.
Right.
Watch documentaries maybe to get away from maybe having to read.
Right.
But that's the first step. You need to educate yourself.
Okay. And what do you think, man? What are some tangible ways that we can really be out here making some change, aside from protesting, which is obviously the one that most people think of when they think of
Yeah,
change?
I mean, I was literally the first thing that came to my mind was reading as well.
Okay.
You know, and for me, you know, I was poli-sci in college. I'm on a law school track now, so that's literally all I do. But the thing is, for folks like you said who don't at least enjoy reading, podcasts. I mean, and not like Pod Save America type thing, but like, you know, Clint Smith's podcast is really
Yeah.
dope, right? Listen
Not
to
the
that.
J Ade Podcast.
You know, no, I mean,
Please, not
Hey,
Charlemagne, not the fucking Breakfast
Hey,
Club.
hey,
right?
please.
But so many, you know, there's so many amazing Black authors who are speaking so much truth to power today, and
Right.
that I try to listen to when I'm driving or things like that.
Right.
If you literally do not enjoy looking at words on paper, which is, you know,
A lot of people.
you know, exactly right.
Right.
Documentaries, you know, and podcasts are probably the two things I would say are really great ways, you know, start, you know, educating yourself in terms of not only this movement, but you know, just so many different things that affect who we are as Black folks in America. You know
Right.
what I mean? So definitely, off the top of my head, I can't even think outside of Clint Smith's podcast because I'm talking so fast, I'm thinking so fast, but definitely, you know, researching podcasts and looking and seeing, you know, what folks are saying, and gathering your own opinions from
Yeah,
that.
you don't have to look that hard. People have made the information, have disseminated the
Very
information in
Right.
such nice ways, like
Yeah.
literally taking all the work. And people like I don't like reading like necessarily like books and stuff like that, but like it does not make sense for me to sit here after I'll be on Twitter scrolling for 3 hours and say I don't like to read. What
Yeah.
are you doing? You're
Right,
reading.
exactly.
So like
Yep.
follow some people who are actually discussing these things on the timeline. That's how I break down a lot of my reading and things of that nature. So that's the first step. I think when you start reading, the rest of it, like what you can do, will reveal itself.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, and obviously, you know, there's the donation aspect of things. You know, I know the
Yeah, donation,
You know,
protest,
right.
petitioning, things
exactly.
like that.
So okay, and to that point, ladies and gentlemen, we had two heavy hitters today on the J Ade Podcast. We back, baby. This is season 3, episode 5 of the show. Follow your boy on Instagram at Joe the Great. That's JOETHEGR8. As well as my podcast page at j.ade.pod. We rocking these J Ade Podcast masks right now, man. You know the vibe. COVID-19. We gotta stay safe, gotta stay secure, man. Thank you for listening, man. We out.